tomorrow morning's Torah reading has a remarkably strange ritual that if you're like a beginner to studying Torah, you might not want to be given this as your first thing to read in the Torah because it's quite strange. In chapter 21 of the book of Deuteronomy, the Torah tells us, Moses teaches, Ki matzil chalal be'adama asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha levishta nofel basadeh. If in the land that God will give you now, you find someone who is slain, and they've been found lying in the field, lo noda mihi kau, and we don't know who's responsible for this death. And the elders and the magistrates, the justices, will go out and they will measure from one city, asher sivot hachalal, that is surrounding the halal, the corpse. Number of cities, 2 cities, not sure what happened here, and so they go out and they measure, make sure which is the city that's closest to the corpse. But the city that is closest, right, to that halal, to the corpse, they take a heifer, asher lo ubadba, that has not ever been worked, right? It's a cow that's never worked before. Asher lo mashcha be'ol, and they never dragged a yoke. And the elders of that city take this heifer down to a Nachal Eitan, is like an ever-flowing wadi, like a river. Asher lo ya'abed bo, that where because of the river there's no agriculture that might be possible in that area. Right? That's the spot. Find that spot. Odd because is it a river that's overflowing? And that wouldn't make sense. It should be like a river that doesn't flow. But apparently, both of those interpretations work here. Something about the land where you're going to actually have this ritual has to be a place where you can't, right? Seeds can't grow in that place. Ve'arfu sham et ha'egla b'nachal, and they have to break the neck of this heifer over this water body. So far, everybody, this is like your Judaism? All good? Everybody, last time, did you do this ritual last week, anybody? Rich, I know you did it, I know. Okay. And then the Levites show up. And they're standing there, the Levites, or the Zakenim really, it's the priests. And then the elders of the city engage in this ritual. The elders of the city that were closest to this death, this unaccounted for death. The elders come forward and they wash their hands in the water and they say out loud, Yadenu lo shafchu et adam hazeh ve'einenu lo ra'u. Where they say out loud, our hands did not spill this blood, meaning the blood that was in the ground, meaning the unaccounted for murder. And our eyes didn't see, meaning not our fault. We were not responsible for this. We're being held accountable, and we're publicly acknowledging that we, and kind of in front of everyone, we're saying we didn't do this. Kaper le'amcha Yisrael shepadita. Please, God, atone for the children of Israel whom you have redeemed. Ve'al titein dam naki b'kerev amcha Yisrael. Let not there be innocent blood shed in your nation, in your land. This strange ritual just raises all kinds of thorny questions. It's best understood probably by Near Eastern scholarship that has shown that in the Hittite cultures that surrounded it, there was a common practice of when there wasn't an unaccounted for death or murder, the city closest would have to give monetary compensation. That was the way they established some element of accountability. There's also, of course, elements of here that has to do with the assumption that the blood of the land, the cries of of Abel, right from the land, the cries of Hevel, of the first murder in the Torah, the cries of humanity are soaked in the land. The land is alive. The land, right, will not give forth fruit. This is a way of vicariously, magically, trying to account balances that need to be balanced in order for the cosmos to be in reciprocity for the ancient Israelites. All wonderful. But writ large, this is a remarkable ritual of accountability. This text has been used in modern Israel to talk about all ways in which public officials can take accountability and must take accountability for all manner of criminal offense or not that has taken place on their watch. This is, of course, the source probably for the greatest quote, maybe from Heschel, who wrote that in a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible. These zikanim, these elders, are brought into a conversation about something that likely might not have anything to do with them whatsoever, but they are called forth to give an accounting. And this wonderfully weird and magical rite invites a ritual to reset the balance and the order of a cosmos rent asunder by the shedding of innocent blood. The rabbis who read this sometime later, of course, read into this not magic, but ethics. The rabbis read into the confession of the elders when they say, our hands didn't spill this blood and our eyes didn't see this crime. The rabbis read into this actually an acceptance of an extra juridical responsibility of ethics in a community. The rabbi's reading this gloss when it says, our hands didn't shed the blood of this innocent human being. The rabbis ask rhetorically, would we have thought that a group of righteous rabbis sitting in a town somewhere would have to say they didn't kill this innocent person? Really? What's the Havamina? Really? Why do they have to? So listen to what the rabbis say, quoting the Mishnah, Midrash. Everybody says this. When the rabbis say our hands didn't spill the blood, they didn't mean our hands didn't spill the blood. They meant we can promise that when the stranger came to town, if this was a stranger, our hands gave him food. We can promise that when we saw this stranger come into our town, our eyes noticed this person and cared for them. Of course, the level of responsibility of rabbis, right? The text says we have to say we didn't kill them. Great. Really? Is that where it ends? That's the limits of your responsibility? The rabbis have to actually go to extra lengths to acknowledge even greater responsibility that we have for one another. And in their confession, they have to cover all their bases. Were you hospitable? Were you loving? Did you make sure that when they came to your city, you cared for them? Did you make sure when they were in your midst, you saw them? It's a pretty high bar. And it speaks so deeply to this moment of trust. Just this past Monday, on the first day of the month of Elul, we announced to the community that the theme that we'll be exploring for the entirety of this next year, like we explored strength last year, each and every Shabbat, each and every month, each and every holiday this year will be focused on trust. What it is, what it isn't, what it might be to lose it, how it might be to regain it. And the first teaching of this Torah portion is that trust is rebuilt when we acknowledge that we have much more responsibility than we might imagine we do have. It's not just, hey, we're done. As this light at the end of the tunnel continues to recede from the ground in which we can't see any longer because it's not workable. As it recedes from view, we see before us people who are washing their hands of their responsibility to the broader collective. It's true. The Constitution guarantees me my freedom. It's true that I can wash my hands and say, you know, I'm taking care of myself. But the Torah calls us to an even greater sense of responsibility for one another. an even greater sense of ownership over the public space and the accountability that is demanded from the public space for us to step back in order for there to be a greater public space than the space that we were inhabiting. So trust happens when we go the extra, when we do the extra, when we think the extra, when we rebuild back. And I think that we have tremendous koach to do that. I haven't given up on any one of you. I haven't given up on any one of you because I know you haven't given up on yourselves. And that's where it begins. If we know one thing from the month of Elul, if we know one thing about what it is to build trust with others, it begins when we have trust in ourselves. If we don't trust ourselves, it'll be very hard to trust someone else. If we don't know deeply within us that on some level, all of us, even when we make mistakes, even when we make foolish mistakes, egregious mistakes, something unconscionably bad and stupid, that we have it within us to fix that which we've broken. Then tshuva doesn't get off the ground. Trust completely erodes, and we will live in a very, very confused space for many years to come. And so here we are. We're coming in for landing. And each and every day of this month, as I said on Monday night at my Hasidic Master's class, we get a chance to sing the song that we were just singing. One thing I ask, right? This great song, Achat Shalti, Psalm 27. But right before that psalm, that line in the psalm, it says, if all things were surrounding me, I would still bezot ani botech, in this I trust. In this I trust. And then it says, one thing I ask. And if you follow the flow, I know it's 115 degrees in this shul right now. And if I were you, I'd be falling asleep. But I'm lucky enough that I'm standing in front of you. And so I'm awake. And that's a good thing for you. Because Lord knows it is hot in here. And I'm wearing a wool tallis. I don't have a summer tallis. No summer tallis here. I just want to bikram my davening. I'm going to be schwitzy schwitzers. So the psalmist in Psalm 27 says, God, you are my light. You are my way out, my redemption, my salvation. You're the doorway out. You're the opening. You open the window and I walk out with you. Yish'i. Why would I be afraid? Why would I let fear dominate my mind, God, if you are the light? Right? If all of my enemies were surrounding me on every side, in this I would trust. One thing I ask of you, God, place me in your space. I want to live with you. I want to know you. I want to enjoy the presence of equanimity and blessing and source. That's what I ask. But it doesn't make sense. In this I trust, one thing I ask. It should say, in this I trust, you will always be there for me. In this I trust, you're not going anywhere. In this I trust, you've always been there for me before. You'll always, like, in this I trust, one thing I ask. In this I trust, one thing I ask. And I said on Monday night, in the name of a teacher that I studied with, it actually does make sense. All tshuva begins with the recognition that you can trust that deep down what you ask for really, really, really is happiness. What you ask for really, really, really is to be in God's house, to be connected to other human beings, to do the right thing, to self-transcend, to be held accountable, to say, you know what, I made a mistake, sorry, I was being selfish. Can we start again? One thing I ask, and this I trust, in my heart, I want another chance. And I'll do it better this time. I'll do it right this time. I have more information this time. Bizot ani boteach achat shalti. Even when I was messing up, I was really just trying to find my way to you. My hands are clean. I'm doing the work. That's the work of Elul. That's the work of Tishrei. As Yehuda Amichai said so beautifully and so memorably, he said, the place where we are right, flowers never grow. And the place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard. In the place where we are right, nothing grows. I trust you. This is the work. Let's do it.